Welcome, everyone. It's Gio, your host to I'm Scared. And we are in the final stages of him being caught. Yes, that's right. Ed Gein finally gets caught. And we see how everybody is in shock, some are in awe, and we get to see exactly just kind of what gets everybody kind of off, what gets everybody excited, what gets everybody kind of like wondering what's going on. And of course, we see someone, using this opportunity to be able to rise to power. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking about Adeline. This is the only time that she's like, "Oh, look, I was a victim," and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, she just forget about what she does. But we finally get to a point where he is now the center of attention worldwide because it is finally come to light what has been going on in a town that is probably a very nice and loving town, like most towns are. But we realize that there has been something afoot and it is finally found. So, without taking any further detail into the beginning, let's hit that theme song and go into Buxom Bird.
If you are prone to scare easily, avoiding all the scary horror movies, you'll never watch but are intrigued to. Geo and Alex watch and review, so you don't have to. So you don't have to.
All right, everyone. All right. Well, the name of the episode is called Buxom Bird. And that is exactly what it is. It's like the desire and entrapment of a bird, meaning that Ed's finally caged in, right? He gets caught, and now we are going to experiment exactly or see what is what occurred and why did it occur, right? So let's first start off with how did this happen? How did he get caught? Like I said in episode 5, or my last episode, but in episode 5 of Ed Gein, he gets caught because the mom that he ends up having a love interest with also has a son, older son, of course. He's joined the army. He's now a veteran. He's come back, and so she discusses that she has plans for Thanksgiving. And she even invites Ed, like, "Hey Ed, let's have Thanksgiving with my son," or things like that. Like, I don't know if he remembers the plans, but this is normally our plan. Well, I guess the son remembered the plans because he made it. He made it back. He said, "Hey, where's my mom?" He goes in to the store because she owned a store. Goes in and realizes, hey, there's blood here. My mom's missing. She's not at she's not at her place. What is going on? She calls the cops, gets the detective who's been looking at all these mysterious events occurring in the town. And he's saying, look, I know for a fact this is happening. And the cool part is that she had, and I'm not saying cool that she got killed. That's very terrible. But I'm saying the cool part was that she had a gift for Ed. But because Ed's psyche went all super crazy, the package was left on the table where the son was able to find it and linked to Ed Gein. As they head to his house, this is where it gets crazy. I think I would have loved to have a discussion with all the policemen, the detectives, and finding all the items in his home. They go and try to figure out where's the mom. They want to go talk to him. He's not home. They get in and they start realizing, one, there's a lot of corpses or a lot of items in here. There's something boiling here. These chairs look very strange. And then that's when they realize, no, this guy has been doing something crazy, right? Something crazy. And that's when he gets discovered. The crazy part about this is that as they're figuring all this stuff out, finding all these things, all these cops are surrounding the house and searching and finding all these things. He comes up, like he just appears and looks like, oh, what's going on here? Like all nonchalant. And when he gets out, the cops go crazy, and they grab him, and he's still confused of what's going on. Then the detective, who was a very like good friend and advocate to Ed, like grabs him and tells him, "What have you done? What have you done?" I like that because it really brought to perspective a lot of people who knew him and probably knew his background. Like they knew the mother was abusive, the mother was, a totalitarian who, if you don't follow the scriptures this way, you're gonna get punished. Blah blah blah. Like they knew that he had a lot of like bad influences in his life, so they really cared for his, his well being. This, officer being one of them, or this detective. And to find this out, it's like a break of reality, a disappointment, a sadness. And you could hear it in his voice when he was like saying, like, what have you done? What have you done? Because he probably in his own mind, couldn't believe that the guy he knew was, you know, dismembering bodies, killing people, experimenting, doing like beef jerky stuff. Like drying out the skin and leaving it there. Like he was doing so much things that was all around the house, and he just couldn't fathom it. Right. So now Ed is caught, and they're talking to him. They're trying to figure out. The son is pissed because he finds the mom like dead. Like it's just in a terrible state. Let's just say, which is a lot worse than I think anybody would want to find a parent, right? And so now you're getting this part where now they're asking him these questions, telling him, hey, why did you do this? What is up? Like, did you kill so and so? Did you kill here? And he kept saying, no, I didn't kill anybody. I did dig up bodies, and I did do this, and I did, like I did all the stuff that you needed with the bodies there because they're dead, so like they have no say. But I did not kill anybody. But they're like, yeah, that is not right because most of the kills have been kind of roughly around the area, or the last person to have been seen in that area has been you. And so all these things come around to put it. Now then, because he's in the spotlight, people are going to look at, okay, this guy's been doing this for a while. Who's been connected to him? Who's been his friends? Now the detective, like I said, he knew him and he knew his past, but they weren't really friends. They were just like he's part of the town, so he knows like, okay, I know what he's doing. Hey Ed, take care of yourself. Hey Ed, sorry about your mom. Type of things like that, right? But they start figuring out that the one person that always hung out with him was Adeline. And now Adeline, being rejected in New York and by her favorite whatever photographer or journalist, she is now in a moment of being able to use this for her advantage. So she plays the victim part. I didn't know this. I didn't, he tried to do the same thing to me too, and blah, 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 blah. And oh my gosh, I will tell you my story and all these things and that, just to get publicity or just to be able to then become the journalist she wanted to be. Again, it just made it worse to see that someone who knew him would like go against him. But we already saw it coming. Adeline honestly wasn't a really good friend, so we knew it was gonna be the the opposite of whatever was gonna be there. But like the one thing I liked that it brought out perspective is, if we're looking at a bird caught in a cage, if we're looking at a victim, like victims, monsters, and all that stuff, who's really the victim? Who's really the monster? Who are the ones looking outside the cage and trying to look at this bird? And, like, if we look at Adeline, was she really the victim? Or was she just part of the monster, but she didn't want to be in the cage, so she made herself look like the victim? And then the viewers. Who are the viewers? You know, I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but we get to a point in this episode that we are no longer simply watching horror. The horror is showing us ourselves. We are the viewers. We are the victims. And at times, we are the monsters. You know, we look at this, and again, I've discussed this in other episodes, but my wife and I have discussed that it's very rare to see documentaries of other serial killers in other countries and discussing on the events that occurred or how did it happen and why did it happen, and let's get into his psyche. Like, there's none of that. Everybody knows a killer is a killer, right? And nobody touches that. But somehow in the US, we become fascinated in it. We look at true crimes. We want to really get to the bottom of what it is. And when you find out, you're like, ooh, you know, like, why do we end up being that bird in the cage being looked at, but also the viewer and also sometimes the victim? And I think it's just because the whole thing comes into play that we are at times caged into these type of scenarios and these type of things that end up leaving us into a viewpoint of maybe something we don't like. So that's where we're at. Boys and girls, men and women, we caught a killer. Probably not one of the first killers in the U.S., but at least a very renowned one. He's caught now. The thing is, with him, because they realize there's something up with his noggin, they send him to a mental institution to live out the rest of his days. With that, we get to see another point while he's there, right? We get to see exactly what his psyche thinks. And I think what's cool is I think they realize exactly a little bit further what schizophrenia is and what it does. So we'll get into that in the next episode called Ham Radio. And see you guys next week.
If you are prone to scary easily, avoiding all the scary horror movies, you'll never watch but are intrigued to. Geo and Alex watch and review.